Lovely stuff. We are back for part 4. I am Stanford Chidge, and this, of course, is the Chelsea Football FanCast. Now, we've got a new slot that I'm introducing this year when we only have one game in the week, which, of course, we will for a few weeks, and that's to get a nice journalist that we know and love on the phone to have a chat about what they think about what's going on with Chelsea. And I am delighted to say that our first such journalist is, in fact, one of my favourites, and I would say one of the best football journalists out there, and he is, of course, Henry Winter from the Daily Telegraph. Are you there, Henry?
There's no such thing as a nice journalist.
Well, kind of steady working in the same area. I'm trying to agree with you, H, but I thought I'd give you a big up anyway.
Thank you.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm very good. I've just got back from Burnley. Very impressive performance, particularly first half.
It was indeed, wasn't it? I mean, we've obviously been extolling the virtues of a fantastic performance in the last kind of half an hour of the show, but obviously what caught our eye was Fabregas. What do you think of him?
Absolutely no surprise. He's got a point to prove to Barcelona. He's got a point to prove to people over here. I think that the Chelsea fans who had the Sessions blue banner actually caught Fabregas' mood. I think he wants to show English people, the Arsenal critics, and just show the world what a good player he is. Because he was used out of position at Barcelona. We talked to Jose afterwards, and he was saying, listen, he's not a false nine, he's not a winger, play him in his best position, get him the ball, get him on the half turn, get him creating chances. I'll tell you what, they'll be going something to beat whatever it was, that 20-pass move, and particularly, well, what's already going to be one of the passes of the season, that weighted pass to Andre Schürrle.
Well, we voted that on what we call our Guinness moment, which is kind of a moment of unbelievably wonderful skill. But actually, talking around that, it wasn't just that pass. It was the run by Hazard, the interplay, the run by Schürrle. It was a fantastic goal. But I saw a different kind of Fabregas to the one that I saw at Barcelona, as you suggested. But I just loved his finesse and his vision and his guile. And for us, I think, he could well be the missing link for Chelsea, because we've not had a player like that in recent memory.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see when you're up against the top teams whether you need another sort of more defensive presence alongside Matic. I mean, Matic has been terrific. He slotted in there. Jose knew what he would do. Sesh, he will attack, but whether you need a more sort of defensive side, you look at how Manchester City have brought Fernando in to play alongside Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure obviously is very creative, but he's a ball winner as well. Be interesting to see whether he moves Sesh slightly further forward and plays maybe more to another more defensive midfielder alongside Matic. But the thing about Sesh is that he can play that role. He can play further forward in a sort of the numb position. But what was encouraging last night from a Chelsea perspective is that there were good performances all over the place. I mean, Ivanovic was involved in all 3 goals, scored one of them, although he was terrific. He was almost like a right winger at times. Diego Costa. I mean, everyone, we all raved about Fabregas because it was just a fantastic moment. And I was at Bolton the last game he played in England when Arsenal lost, and Fabregas almost went off to Barcelona slightly with his tail between his legs, and he's sort of come back and he's got a point to prove. But Diego Costa I thought was key, because there's a good player somewhere in Fernando Torres, but it's lost at the moment. Didier Drogba, as you saw when he didn't have that burst of pace to get the ball early on, will never be the Didier Drogba, his last touch for Chelsea winning the Champions League final. But Diego Costa, and this is where one key element of Chelsea staff is the backroom staff. If you can keep Costa fit, I'm convinced he'll win the title. I went for you pre-season just to pick City for the title because of Costa. We all knew what Fabregas would do, but Costa coming in will give you that goals, will lead the line. Thought he was very unlucky. It should have been a penalty. Anywhere else on the pitch, that's a straightforward free kick to Chelsea, so why shouldn't it be a penalty to him? Very encouraging night for Chelsea.
I think, I think that the consensus around this table here is that he could well be the striker we've been looking for several years. Obviously since Drogba left, we've never had a guy who can A, bang the goals in, and B, hold the ball up and actually be a real physical presence on the field for us and dominate opposition defences, and he looks like he could be the one.
And the other thing about him is that he talks to players, and Jose was talking at length about this on Friday, is that he's a really good character. There's no ego to him. You look at his career, he's never really been, until the sort of last couple of seasons, he's never been the sort of the number one, the main man. He's always had to play second fiddle to other strikers. So he's almost he's going to have a great 5 years now because he's got the hunger for it because of rejection earlier in the career or not being given the promotion and the platform earlier in his career. And he's got all the strengths to be a modern centre forward, successful centre forward in the Premier League. The greatest scorer in Premier League history is Alan Shearer with 260 goals. There are elements of Costa's game that he's got the physical strength. You were probably there last season when he bullied John Terry. Not many people bullied John Terry. So he's got that physical strength. He's got that little burst of acceleration. He's got the eye for goal, as we saw yesterday after 17 minutes. And he's a team player. So it's a terrific signing.
The other thing, of course, is that Jose, kind of as half expected, I think, by many of us, but he went for Thibaut Courtois in goal, and of course that meant that Cech was sitting on the bench. Do you think this is the end for Cech, Henry?
I do, sadly. I really felt last night it was the end of the era and the start of a sort of brave new dawn for Chelsea. Courtois, he has to start. I mean, there was absolutely no question about it. Jose Mourinho's got this new era. He wanted to strengthen the spine. You've got two good centre-halves, Fabregas coming in and Diego Costa up front, and you had to address the goalkeeper situation. Cech has been fantastic for you. I can count, the number of times he's let you down sort of on half an hour, if that's possible. Maybe 2 or 3 times he's sort of made mistakes. He has been absolutely fantastic, great servant, terrific off the pitch. From a media perspective, an absolute joy to deal with, good, honest character, great pro, great servant to the club. But I hope he can leave now. I don't want him to sit on the bench because he deserves more than that. I hope he goes to PSG and has a sort of fantastic sort of 2-3 years there. Hopefully not getting Chelsea's way in the Champions League. But Courtois, what you saw with Courtois was how suited he is to the English game as well as the European games. He was very quick off his line. Continental goalkeepers can be slightly slow to come out for crosses. You see it with Liverpool, another Belgian, Mignolet. Whereas Courtois will come and he will command the saves, and as you command the ball from crosses, set pieces, corners, whatever. But you also saw that save from Scott Arfield in the second half, how athletic he is, and for me, he's in the top 3 goalkeepers in the world, still behind Neuer, but he's going to threaten the German one day.
So there's no question in your mind that he's ready to be Chelsea's number 1 then?
I think he was ready to be Chelsea's number 1 last season.
Yeah, I think you got a good point there, Henry, and I agree with you entirely. I thought it was it's the first time I've kind of seen him play for us, obviously, in anger, and I was hugely impressed by the way that he does come on our box and he comes out and he catches the ball. He doesn't flap at it or punch it. He catches it, and that must give the defence so much confidence and stability by doing that.
And the other thing is he will launch counter-attacks, because if you're Eden Hazard or Oscar, and that, and you're not necessarily helping out defensively, but you're lingering in your own half because the opposition has got the ball, and suddenly the cross comes in, that Courtois, 9 times out of 10, will get that ball. You're off and running. So I can see Chelsea, launching some good counter-attacks. And one thing, coming back to Fabregas, when he was at Arsenal, I watched him a lot at Arsenal through work. The problem with Arsenal is that they don't necessarily go for the jugular quickly. And Fabregas, because he can play these quick passes, he doesn't want necessarily to slow up the move. He wants to play those quick passes, and that's what Chelsea want to do. And Chelsea will gear quicker than Arsenal were when Fabregas was there. And I think that really suits Fabregas now.
Well, that's excellent stuff. I mean, what I would also say is, I know it's a bit weird because, Courtois was already our player, but I've been actually quite impressed with Chelsea in the transfer market. They've signed 3 excellent players additionally to Courtois and Luis, Costa and Fabregas. And they seem to have filled a lot of the gaps that we had last season. And I think the thing that I like most is that they've done the business very, very, very quickly. But, do you think there's any more to come?
Ooh, good question. I still do have a concern if Diego Costa gets injured, because Fernando Torres is not top quality now for whatever reason. Didier Drogba, may have a sort of, a few great games left in him still, but I'm still not sort of convinced now. His best days are clearly behind him. It would be nice to see a really high class. Bamford's obviously off on loan, and he's sort of 2-3 years away from being a top player, and he might not even reach that level. I still think that might be a concern if you need an understudy to Diego Costa in the Champions League. And, touch wood, he doesn't get injured, but, he can get injured, as Atletico Madrid found last season. So that, I would say, is an issue. I think fullbacks are fine. I know there have been debates about that, and Ashley Cole was a magnificent servant for you, and it was great to hear the fans sing his name and also Frank's name as well to show their appreciation. Midfield, who the players come in? Matic and Fabregas are terrific. You've got 1 or 2 other players as well. It's not the biggest squad, but you still have the best coach, and he can juggle his resources. What was important last night was to do it against the inverted commas smaller teams, because I thought that was your Achilles heel last season. I just went to so many of the big games and you thought Chelsea are going to walk this league because they're winning all the big games, but you drop points against the smaller teams, which you shouldn't do.
Yeah, we felt much the same, and some of us felt that after 13 minutes, Henry, when they went 1-0 up. But you're right. I think that's a game that we could have easily lost last year, and it was really good to see them play it the way they did and dominate in the way they did. I mean, talking about the transfers, it's interesting. I mean, why do you think that they brought Drogba back?
Interesting, very, very interesting. Maybe it was I don't know necessarily where Jose does emotional moves. I think maybe they thought that he would give them, or will give Chelsea, so 10, 15 games a season. Maybe he'll play in the Carling Cup and matches like that, or the Capital One Cup, play games like that. I still think he fits in with the philosophy, and that even though he hasn't got the pace and maybe the muscular element is not so much, he can still hold the ball up and, against one or two lesser teams. And maybe it gives him a chance to take off Diego Costa after 70 minutes if he's done the damage and bring Drogba on. I hope Drogba's a legend at the club. He's an ambassador. I mean, the last sight of him was smoking a large cigar in the dressing room in Munich. And, I'm sure you've met him. He's just one of these wonderful people that you just think will enhance the club, certainly off the field and maybe occasionally on the field.
I mean, to be honest, Henry, that was my feeling, and it kind of, underlines my concern that in my book, we only really have one top striker at the club, which leaves us vulnerable. But, for me, I thought it was an excellent idea bringing Drogba back because, you're losing the likes of Ashley Cole and in particular Frank Lampard, who have been such big presences in the dressing room with a huge amount of experience. And I think more importantly, understand how Jose Mourinho works and, of course, the whole winning mentality that he bred into Chelsea. So I think bringing somebody like Drogba back was a very, very shrewd move, but I'll be surprised if he gets an awful lot of game play. I'll be worried if he gets a lot of game time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Henry, go on. Hang on a minute.
I agree. I agree. Unless it's, you're 4-0 up with 20 minutes to play and you can bring Drogba on. He can, sort of run around and roll back the edge. But what's interesting, you touched on this, all the players that you've brought in, I don't know particularly Felipe Luis, but all the players you brought in are known as good characters off the pitch. Now, with Courtois, you talk to the Belgians, he's a good individual. He'll be an ambassador for the club, echoing Cech over the next 10 years. Everyone, we mentioned Diego Costa, he's a good character, a good citizen. Fabregas as well, he's a bright individual. He'll bring, they're younger players there who want to develop as a sort of creative midfielder. He will help them because he's just, he's that guy. He's a good guy. You don't really hear of him falling out of nightclubs as you do one or two players in the Premier League. He's a good, proper professional. And Drogba, of course, as well. He's one of the great characters. He could go back home and be voted, Prime Minister and President and probably Chancellor of the Exchequer because he's just such a sort of respected individual.
Do you mean in the UK or the Ivory Coast, Henry?
I think we could probably do him with the UK as well. But do you know what? He's versatile enough to do both.
He's a brilliant guy, isn't he? Martin, you want to come in?
I was just saying, Henry, you said that Drogba might get 10 or 15 games. I think he's more likely to get 10 or 15 minutes in a few games rather than play a whole game. I don't think he can do 90 minutes anymore.
No, I was thinking, but in terms of sort of coming on and playing 10 or 15 games, I think he'll play a few games in the Cup. Would you necessarily play Diego Costa in an FA Cup? I know Jose quite likes the FA Cup, and obviously the League Cup was good to him first time around when he won. But, you've got to keep Diego Costa for those two competitions, the Champions League and the Premier League.
I think it depends really how much Jose wants to win, as many trophies and titles as he can. I mean, on that point, Henry, I know that Chelsea are probably quite justifiably favourites, but does Jose have to win the title this year?
Everyone says that. The first thing you've got to say is, are the fans going to be more entertained this season? Yes. The quality of the football last night, they were gasps in the press box. They were gasps amongst the Burnley fans in front of me when Fabregas paid that pass, and they appreciated the pure beauty of the move. Obviously, it was a shot. They realised what they were up against. But when you get bullied like that, like sort of Brazil did to Italy in 70, you just have to sort of applaud the quality of the opposition. So I think from an entertainment perspective, which, fans go for the glory and the medals and the day out at Wembley and all that, but also you want to be entertained. Ask West Ham fans. They want to be entertained. You want to be entertained. You're going to see some really good football this season. So that's the first point. In terms of a trophy, look, Jose. I've been to so many events with Jose, and I've seen him win trophies over the last 10 years. So the trophies will come. I think it's between you and Manchester City for the title. I was at St James's Park on Sunday, and they look strong. They've fought well as well. There's no dissent behind the scenes as there was with Mancini. They've got some good players, but I think it's going to be a really entertaining two-horse race. Yeah. But Chelsea, for me, have A, the manager, and B, the players. I would be amazed if Abramovich got rid of him at the end of the season if he didn't win a trophy. I mean, even with no striker, you did well in the Champions League, pretty well in the Champions League last season. So, tailed off a little bit, but still won the big games in the Premier League. So I think you'll win a trophy. So I don't think it will even be an issue about debate about Jose's future.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. I think most of the supporters, are really desperate. Now we believe we've got the right man back to lead the club. Hope that he's given a long time, because we all feel that if he's given long enough and Roman keeps his finger off the trigger, we could really build something substantial here. So I certainly hope that he won't get the boot. Talking of the supporters, Henry, 4,000 of us up in Burnley last night on a grim, wet northern Monday evening. Pretty good performance, do you not think?
I thought it was fantastic. He took over the whole David Fishik stand. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Some of the chants were fairly lively. I'm not sure Burnley fans appreciate all that, but that's what banter between fans is all about. I thought it was terrific. I mean, I don't know how the fans came up, but anyone coming up the M6 deserves a medal anyway for getting through the M6. I went back through the A1 down the A1, and they closed that off. The M1's always carnage, loads of road work. So I just think it was brilliant. On a Monday with a game on television, Sky's coverage is fantastic. There's every excuse to stay in a nice pub on the King's Road or on Cobham or wherever and watch it from there. And yet, was it 3,800, 4,000 of you lot turned up? So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's lovely to see. I mean, we've got one of the lads here who sits on our benches opposite us. He got back at 4 o'clock this morning. It's quite an effort. What I have to say, I mean, it was an awful journey up there and back, and it's not the first time, and it won't be the last. I mean, what do you think about Sky and the Premier League moving matches like this to a Monday night? I mean, they have a nasty habit of doing that, don't they?
I thought they were always going to stagger the big four over the weekend, so that you had sort of Arsenal on Saturday evening, that you had, the four that we all think are going to chase the Champions League. Then you had sort of Liverpool Sunday lunchtime, then you had Manchester City, and then sort of Chelsea. And I think, he who pays the piper. Yeah. I think there should be more consultation. I think the television companies should make the decisions quicker. I think it would be nice if we had a rail system that worked late at night and didn't close down at 11:30 at night. I mean, I live in the Midlands, and if I'm doing a match in London, the last train north is pretty much 11:30 from King's Cross. So that is, but that's a government thing and issues in the country. And I don't think, there are many problems with the Premier League. You can't quite blame the rail system on it.
Well, I think, it's a very serious issue, actually. And I think what annoys a lot of us, and I mean, I know you know this, and we've talked about this, with my Chelsea Supporters Trust hat on, but, when you look at the schedule, and there are something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games with evening kickoffs where one of the clubs is in for a very long journey, and also won't be able to get back that night because the trains don't run, And
well, I agree. What I would do, look, television is always going to have its say on that. It's why you can afford players like Diego Costa and you can afford Fabregas' wages. So there is a quid pro quo there, and it's quite a few quid. What I would do is that any match that the away support has to travel more than 150 miles for a television match, which has been moved, and all television matches are moved, that all the away tickets are funded by the Premier League. So all the clubs put in, like, whatever it is, 500 grand, £1 million at the start of the season, so that the away support, because that's what television wants. If I'm at home watching a game, I don't want to see empty spaces on the terraces. And if I'm watching the game out in the Far East, one of the reasons why I pay my subscription out in the Far East is because I want to watch the Premier League. It's because of the atmosphere. It's because of the fans, as well as the entertainment on the pitch. So I talked to Scooter Moore about this last week. I said, listen, because it was the day before the march on the Premier League HQ, the Football Supporters Federation. They do a great job, and they went there and they just made the point. And the problem with the Premier League, they said, well, we've got 96% occupancy. We don't need to worry about you yet. But sadly, I think they do. I think they should show more respect. Some of the prices that, say, clubs like Arsenal charge, I think is disgraceful. And Arsenal are not alone with how much they charge for away fans. But I do think for televised matches, for fans who are travelling a long way, like last night, televised match, what is it, 200 miles, 250 miles.
Henry, that's a great idea. I concur entirely. And I have to say, we're very grateful here because the Chelsea have a good habit of putting on special trains for us as well, which does help greatly. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, Henry, because I'm out of time. But before I go, can I just thank you hugely for coming on the show? I really appreciate it, and you've been fascinating as you always are.
Brilliant, indeed.
My pleasure. See you on the road.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Henry. Hopefully we'll speak to you again later in the season. But thanks a lot, mate. Appreciate it.
Take care. Cheers, guys.
Brilliant. Wow. We are honoured and flattered. What a lovely guy. And Henry really does have fantastic insight onto the game. And he's a huge supporter of the supporters too. Anyway, we've got to go because I've run out of time. But we'll be back in a minute and we'll be talking to another guest, Nigel Seeley, the betting expert. See you in a few minutes.